Welcome to Beyond the Den. Today's guest, Shane Cultra, an entrepreneur with a wealth of experience from Web 2 to Web 3. Tune in for an insightful journey filled with life lessons and digital wisdom from a true industry maverick. All right, now Domain Shane, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm on the road, so I don't have my normal studio or my normal setup, but hey, that's the world of we live in, right? You can work from anywhere and do things from anywhere in the world.
That's crazy. It really is. So Shane, share with us your journey into the Web3 space.
Yeah, so I'm a little older, so I've got some years under my wings, but I've done a lot of things. So I graduated from the prestigious academic college of University of Alabama, and we put
Roll
some
Tide,
good football players out of there and some decent business people. But I met a mentor, and this is something I tell everybody. You know, schools are only as good as the people you meet within, right? The educational systems are as good as the mentors and the teachers. So people that say that this school is better than another, at the undergraduate level, I disagree. It's really what you make of it. And so at Alabama, I found a professor that saw that I loved investing, and he got me into options and stocks, and we spent a lot of time, and he taught me how to trade. And so I got a job in Chicago right out of college at being a runner, working on the floor that you see in all the movies with people with hand signals and sending all the I did that. That's what I did. I ran paper before the internet, young people. We used to actually run the order from the phone. So we'd call on a phone, get a piece of paper, run it out to the pits, hand it to the brokers, and they would sell it. They'd fill it, write it down, and I'd run it right back. And you do that, and you become a clerk, and then you become a trader. So I kind of worked my way up through the trading system and learned about the markets. And basically, long story short, we were on an 80-20 split, meaning you borrowed $1 million to become a trader. And where do you get money at 22 years old? It's not very easy to find $1 million. So they let you keep 20% of what you make, and they take 80% of what you make. So even if I made $500,000, I was making $100,000. Then I had to pay my seat license, and I had to pay my clerk, then I had to pay my trading fees. And it wasn't as great as I thought. And it was very addicting. I was an addicted gambler by the time it was done. And I took a hard turn. And my family's been in the nursery business for 150 years. And my father said, hey, I'm starting a nursery, and we're going to grow plants, and it's in a college town. And I know I loved college towns, so I moved with my newly met girlfriend at the time, now my wife of 28 years. We moved to Central Illinois, and I worked in the nursery business for 30 years. But the problem with family business and a local, a small business, that you will learn eventually, if you haven't learned, every penny goes right back in. There is all reinvestment. If you want to grow, every cent you make goes right back in. So you're cash rich. On paper, I'm a millionaire, very wealthy. But when it comes to cash, everything's put back into business, buying more land, buying more tractors. Everything goes back in. So I was always working on the side, trying to earn extra income so I could have some cash flow. And I did a lot of things. I wrote a blog. And one of the things I've been fortunate of, when I go into something, I go into it pretty hard. So I saw in 2007, I saw people writing blogs and doing really well and getting all this traffic. And I thought, well, I can do that. So I wrote a blog, and within a year, I had 1 million visitors per month.
Wow.
And I sold it to Lionsgate Films. And Lionsgate Films was a company that went with Break Media, and they bought Stuff Magazine and Maxim Magazine, which everybody read at one point in time. And they bought those magazines, and they bought my website, and they made it into a site called Made Man. And it was going to be the new men's magazine of the internet.
Wow.
And
a centerfold of
so
you.
I sold my first website, and I got to fly out to LA and do that thing where they take you out to dinner and pick you up in a car. And it was great. It was a great experience. And so I got my first taste of what the internet could provide. And I also met some other people in that space. It was called Wall Street Fighter. So basically those stories that I told people from my trading days about being a young guy and trading and going out and drinking and meeting women, I literally just wrote that in a blog. I told the stories that everybody liked to hear, and I put them on paper or on the internet. And so I learned that if I could just tell my story, tell what I did, embellishment. I'll call it embellishment. None of them are lies. I've had to prove many times over the year that all my stories are true. Even my mom has to tag along sometimes because they're like, there's no way that happened. I'm like, come on, let's tell them this story. So anyway, I learned that you can be you and make money doing it. So
cool.
But where I got into Web3, so that's Web2. And then, I started, the internet was getting popular. And at the nursery, I started feeling like that I might lose some business to the internet. We were a retail business, but I was nervous that maybe we need to be on the internet a little more. In hindsight, it kind of was true. But the one thing about plants is they're perishable. And it is something that is a little harder to buy online. So it actually worked out in my favor, but that didn't stop me from buying lots of plant names. So I was buying plant names that I felt I could sell on the internet. And so I just started buying domains for that purpose. And it turned out those brands were really popular. Like names that I would buy for plants turned out to be brands that were really good.
Interesting. What year was that?
And as I noticed people were doing that, I started buying more domains. So it started in 1999 with my daughter being born, getting her name, and then progressed through. I probably didn't get good until 2007 or 8. So probably 8 or 9 years of buying shitty domains and not making any money. But I took on this new life of domain Shane. So I was Trader Shane for a little while. Then I became Domain Shane. And then NFTs came along, and they're like domains. It's just another form of digital asset. And us domain name people slid over very well. We all came over and just crushed the market with the Bored Apes and everything else because we understood that market. So that was a long segment of what I did, but you can kind of see the progression of how I went through of just kind of seeing what could be done and just following that path along on the internet.
Yeah, very interesting. It seems like you've always had that childlike curiosity, right? I mean, you almost have to. This age, being an older dude in the space, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm eternally 38. That's what I always tell. Like, I run every day. Like the funny story is my daughter's over in Princeton. My wife, there's great internet there. It's like 400 megabit internet in my daughter's place. So she drives over every morning. I run. It's a 9 mile. I can hop on the canal path. So I leave the door and I run to my daughter's every morning, 9 miles away. I love to exercise. I keep healthy mentally and physically. I don't feel older, but I do when I hear other people that are younger talk, and I'm like, you just don't know yet. Like, you just haven't done it yet. You just
so
don't
true,
know.
Right? Yeah. It is true. I mean, there's a lot of power in wisdom, right? I mean, it's like, but we remember being young, right? When the older folk was like, wait, you'll see, and you go, nah.
I just don't remember getting old. I just remember doing all the things I've done, but I don't remember getting old. But I will say that and again, this is going to be a number of years down the road for people, but you're going to get to a place where you've done everything. And there's just not, like, that's where I'm at now. It's a little bit more difficult because I have nothing left to prove. I've done a great job raising a family, a happy marriage. I've made enough money. So where do I go from here? So I'm not going to lie. When I retired from the nursery business last year, and I was just trying to figure out, I knew I didn't want to do more retail. Retail's brutal. I love it. I'm great at it. I appreciate it. I love my business more than anything in the world, but I just can't wait on another person. And it tells me their plan is dead. Like, I just can't do it anymore. I can't work a Saturday. So everybody asks, if you get anything out of this, they're going to say, how do you know when to retire? I can tell you this, you're just going to know. Like, you're going to wake up and you're just going to sit there one day and you might cry and you might shake your head, but you're just going to know I can't do it anymore. And that's not a negative thing. That's just how life's going to hit you one day. And it may be when you're younger, it may be a job that you have where you just say, no matter what I'm making here, this is not worth what I'm going through. And you can't let little things, it can't be a bad day. It can't be small things. And you can't be a baby about it, but you're going to know. So luckily I'm working with Buckley Media. I've taken a role there where I'm selling premium domains and helping build a company and giving advice and advising in that role as well. And I love the people I work with. That's, again, we can get back to lessons. Got to love the people you work with. You got to respect the people you work with. Got to love what you're doing, and the rest you'll figure it out. Like, that's the thing. So
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and people will get there if you're lucky. You'll get if you're lucky enough to have everything you want and be confused where you go from there, then you're still in a good place.
Sure. What advice would you say to somebody who has maybe been doing being in a profession, right, for a long period of time, kind of like yourself in the plant industry, and you get to that point, right, where you're unhappy and it starts overtaking your life and you start just, it's not like that, you have a bad day here and there. You start getting to that point where you don't love what you do anymore. It makes you sick.
Yeah.
Right. How did you balance making that transition, right, to doing something you love, and still were you gutting it out to a certain point where you can kind of, take the training wheels off, if you will, right, financially? What would you say to somebody who might be in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first bit of advice that I tell everybody is to keep your wants to a minimum that allows you more flexibility, right? So don't put yourself in a financial situation that forces you to do things you don't want. And that there's only two ways when it comes to finances, right? It's keeping the cost low or keeping the revenue high. That's it. There's no other choices. So I chose to go, when it comes to running a business, I'm a revenue guy. My dad's a cost cutting, and we butted heads a little bit. Like I always said, you can't cut costs past zero, but revenues you can go forever.
Yeah.
But when it comes to personal finances, making sure that you keep your wants to a minimum, get the car that you need. Buffett says stuff like this all the time. This isn't new stuff. You don't have to have a fancy car. You just need a car that doesn't break down, that's sound. It can be a new car, but it still needs to be practical. Same with homes. People overdo it. It's ridiculous. I made the same mistake. I have rooms I haven't been in months. Like just doesn't make any sense. But when it comes down to it, I lived in the Midwest. I got a house that was paid for very quickly. I have no debt. So that allowed me to have a little bit of financial freedom. And I think that's where you start. The second thing is, don't quit your job till you have a plan. It's got to be really bad that you just quit with no plan at all. That can maybe spiral even further than where you are at that time. So I always like to pick the good parts of my job and concentrate on that, and then have something to look forward to at night. So I was working on domains and working on other things. Now, fortunately, I was running my company, so I loved it. There's things having 45 employees, it was brutal. Like, oh yeah, I had to remember how to talk to different people. Like I would say, okay, I can be a little stern on this person. Yeah. Getting through that is taxing, but I do enjoy that pressure. But I also think you have to have something to look forward to all the time. And this, a little off color, but I always tell everybody, like, if your wife says you're going to fool around at night before you leave for work, your day is going to be brilliant. Like all day you're looking forward to it, whether it's going to happen or not. Mm-hmm. You've just been given a carrot for that day. That's like, da, 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 da. You're skipping around at work and people are like, what happened? They have no idea. Mm-hmm. Most likely your wife's going to say, hey, I'm tired. But in general, you can get the concept there. Is having something to look forward to, even if it's small at night, can be, and it can't be alcohol, and it can't be, that's where I always say God fills holes. Make sure those holes are filled with something you enjoy that are positive. Mm-hmm. So you combine all that, and I think you've got a really good chance. But if you really don't enjoy your job, you have to make a plan to get out of that situation. And again, by minimizing your cost, you could take a job. I took a job between trading and working for my dad, because my dad didn't need me for another year, at a video game store. I was 25 years old. I liked video games at the time. And I'm like, what do I really like? Video games. Well, I can't be a professional video game player. I'll just sell the damn things. At least I'll learn how to work retail, because I didn't know how to work retail at the time. And so I sat in a video game and learned how to sell games and like new game systems that were out. And my wife still laughs about it. She's like, you remember you worked in the mall? And I'm like, yeah, I took a bus for an hour to a mall after making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And because I knew that I needed to do something and do something I liked until I could really find what I wanted.
Yeah. Very powerful, for sure. You're a big fan too of diversity in investments, like life policies in crypto and NFTs, right? Where are you in that phase right now?
Yeah, diversification, the way to make the most money is to go all in. The way to lose a lot of money is to go all in. Long term, diversification is really good. You need money management. The best gamblers even are the best money managers. They're not the best players. They're the best money managers. They know to diversify what they're doing. When it comes to making money, I think you have to have some safe assets. Like the rule has always been for me, 10% in extra risky, and then 10% on that's stupid. Like you shouldn't do anything that safe. You're only 25 years old. There's no reason to be in bonds. So those fringes are going to be things that people tell you not to. So when it comes to diversification, I bought a whole life policy, which was everybody tells you never, always buy term life insurance. But I gambled so much that I felt like I should put something in to the most safe investment ever, and at least give me my wife some security in case something happens to me. So I bought a whole life, and then this year it came. Well, next year it will be 30 years, and my wife has $1 million paid life insurance, which $1 million isn't what it used to be, but that's something. And I can take the cash now as well. So I look at something and like, that was stupid, but 30 years of. And I won't say that I didn't even notice it, because when I first did it, it was a big percentage of my salary. But now it's not that big a hit. So, I did things like that, but I also trade options like crazy. Like I was trading options for a living. So I'm kind of, I would say, addicted to that as well. But you just have to
balance, right?
Let it sit and forget about it. Just balance that whole portfolio and have stocks and have crypto and have, finding that balance of what you are really comes down to your age. It depends how old you are.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be a little bit more conservative in my 50s, because horrible to think, but I've got 40 years left. So I've got to start, maybe being more income driven than I am, appreciation. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that are really important. And that's you either got to learn yourself or have somebody that knows what they're doing to advise you, or at least, I know everybody thinks they know what they're doing, but it's good to have a second opinion on that just to make sure that they're checked, because it's if you're doing it right, there's more than you that are living off of what you make. Like that's the thing. It's once you have kids, as you know, it is no longer about you. You move in when you get married, you move into second. When you have kids, you move into third and keep falling down the chain. So your investments are really not about you. It's enough to live, yes. But it's really about making sure they have a good base and an opportunity to do what they want to do as well. So it's a much bigger picture of why you're doing things. Yeah,
great advice for sure. So let's speak about your crypto journey, right? You first got into Bitcoin in what was it, 2014-ish? Was it that?
Yeah,
early?
like 14. Yeah, it's been So Mike Carson, who was a friend of mine that I met through the original Wall Street Fighter blog, he had his own financial blog, and he was known as Ugly Mike then. A number of years later, he said, "Hey, I have a site called Park.io where I'm catching expired.io names," which ended up being the most popular tech ending. So at the time, nobody knew about .io. Nobody really cared about .io, and he set up a company that really focused on that. And I'm like, "Ugly Mike, you're in domains now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm in domains and I'm in crypto." And I'm like, "Crypto? That's kind of heard of it." And he kind of dollar cost averaged for a long time, and it's made him very comfortable doing that. So I didn't really make that much, because at the time, when something's 30 and goes to 500, you're thinking this is crazy. None of us had seen things like that. Even the stock market options were not that much. So me being who I am, I sold, and he being who he is, he just kept buying more. So he's done really well. But then my story is really funny. So there was BitClout. BitClout was there was two things. So it was BitClout and then Top Shot.
Top Shots.
Yeah. So I got into BitClout, and BitClout was friend tech. It's exactly the same thing. It was you have your own coin and people can buy it and you promote yourself. It was the very first kind of crypto game. And there's no way out. You got your BitClout dollars and you couldn't get out. And then a friend of mine said, "There's a way you can actually sell. There's an underground market where somebody will provide escrow and buy your coins for, I can't remember what it was, 60%, 60 cents on the dollar, something like that. It was not full price, but it was actually pretty good. And in the Discord, again, that was my first time in Discord, really. Mm-hmm. There's this guy and they buy it and it all works well. And I don't remember the numbers, but something like $6,000 in BitClout. So I took the money and I saw Top Shot, and my friend was like, "Hey, you love basketball cards? This is in December of 20." No, wait, I don't remember whenever Top Shot came out, but it was,
I think it was 19 or 20.
It might be 19. So December of 19. And I bought it and forgot about it. And then he came back later and said, "Hey, those cards are actually worth something." I'm like, I didn't even think that'd be anything. And then Bored Apes came around and I took that $6,000 and bought 3 apes, then 4 apes for $6,000. And the rest is history. Like, wow. If you tell somebody that you bought in the first week 4 Bored Apes, they had to do okay, right? They couldn't have lost the money.
Sure.
And I didn't. I sold all of them for, as soon as it hit $250,000 or more, I sold them. So,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I took 6,000 into $1 million.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Really is. Where did your conviction lie was why the Bored Apes and why NFTs?
Yeah. NFTs was pure money. I bought the Bored Apes because I was looking for a logo for companies, and I thought that was so I knew that to pay an artist. So I had already worked with Joe Ruiz, which I worked with on Trippies, which is a NFT that we did. So I already knew what it cost to get a logo done. And at the time it was $500 to $1,500 to get a mascot or logo. And I thought, well, these are kind of pre-drawn and there seems to be a lot of hype around it and they're kind of cute and I kind of resonate with some of them. So I'll go with these. And that's it. There was no other reason. When I got into NFTs, I told every single person the same thing. I told them, buy something that you enjoy hanging on your wall, because most likely, based on my past experience, that will all it will be worth. So everything I bought because I thought it would be fun to hang on my wall. There was no idea of this appreciation or what would become. I bought it because I thought they were cute. 95% of the cute are only cute and are hanging on my wall. They have no value. But the rest of them, I got pretty lucky.
Interesting. What's the most important life lesson you've applied to your Web3 strategies?
My thing is to take in, whether it's financial or the joy, is to stop and take it in. So when it comes to Web3, you got to stop and take some profits, right? That's when you're running and you're out in a beautiful area, and I have a 9-mile run, I'll just stop sometimes. And if I see something cool, I'll just stop and look at it and think about it and take it in. I have no problem giving up something else. Like, I'll give up some profits by taking too early. Maybe I won't run as fast as I could have or gotten there as quickly, but that doesn't matter. Like it's cliche to say it's about the journey, but it's always been about that for me. Like I really enjoy the process. Like a race for me is only a measure of how well I've trained. It's really not what's important. It's just the measure. Money is the same thing. If I have enough, I want some more. Don't get me wrong. I got a couple of houses I'd like to buy and some things I want to do. But in general, there's a certain point when you have everything, kind of like when we talked earlier in life, when you've done everything, you can't just keep getting better at everything. At some point, you stop wanting that. You either want to try something new. When it came to running, I run 35 marathons. I finally broke 3 hours, and I literally sat there one day. I'm like, shit, I'm getting old. I just broke 3 hours 2 years ago. I started when I was 40. It took me like 12 years to break 3 hours. That's a huge goal for most people. People lie about it in politics and say they broke 3 hours. That's how great it is. But I thought to myself, now what? And so in finances, I don't want to make a round trip with my finances. I want to make money. And I will take profits. And sometimes I don't make as much as other people, but I've always made profits. Always Always made, when it was all said and done, I had 100% chance of making money in NFTs. There was never a chance that I would make it. Now that $1 million turned into 500,000 really quickly with some projects that didn't go well. You can look at it and say, hey, I was stupid. I bought Moonbirds. I bought, Wolf Game was actually fine. I didn't really lose that much. It wasn't terrible. But Moonbirds got me pretty good. NFT Worlds was horrible. NFT Worlds, I really gambled too much on that. And I call it gambling because it was pretty stupid. But in general, I got there being a little risky and I was willing to do more. But I always ensure that my journey has some positives when it comes out there. I always make sure that happens.
Yeah, for sure. Can you talk a little bit about strategies for taking profits? I mean, over the years, obviously, you've tried different things, and do you have like a specific strategy when it gets to, say, 20%? You take, 10%
I don't have any set. I don't have anything set, but most people would tell you that you want to take out at least your original investment. That's not profit. That's kind of protection. I kind of set a number that I think is reasonable, but I always try and keep skin in the game. So when I go into something, I usually buy multiples of it so that I can keep skin in the game and still enjoy it. So I always try and buy in sets of threes, and that way I can set my goals for two of the three and then get out with and still participate. Because I'll be honest with you, the people that only had one Bored Ape and sold, I don't want to say they become fudders, but they definitely try and mentally make it seem like a good move by saying everything else is wrong. Like, oh, that's bad. I'm glad I got out. No, they got out because they only had one. If they had three, they probably have one left and sold the other two and had some extra money. So, but I do conceive what I would like to get out of something when I buy it. Like if I'm buying something, I buy it for a reason, and then I kind of think of a goal. Now that number may change, that bar may change a little bit, but in general, I do think about it. We're doing, when it comes to staking and things like that, you have to analyze what are your risk rewards in everything you do. Everything's not as simple as far as, I'm going to sell it for more. No, there's lots of other costs that go into what that is. Occupying your money for a while, the time that we spend online, right? Like if you buy something that causes you to look at a screen for 2 hours every day, 5 to 7 days a week, there's a lot more cost to that. It's not just what you put in. You just ruined a good productive day. So there's things like that. Like I'll say to myself, I'm not going to buy it because I'm going to check the damn price every time because I have so much money in it that I can't look away. But you can say, well, that's a flaw in yourself. No, that's human nature. Once you get to a certain risk level, your body starts checking that risk constantly.
Yeah. Very well said. What's your take on altcoins?
I think it's just gambling. It's straight up gambling. There's lots of money to be made. It's an insider's game. The most money I made are coming in early and working with people and knowing what's going to happen. And it's just straight up gambling. It's something that most people should stay away from. But I do think like the level 2 coins and the level 1 coins and some protocols, those are businesses. Like if there's people working and constantly trying to develop that, versus somebody that saw Elon Musk say that he slept on a feather bed and then started a coin called Feather. And then those are just straight up gambling. And I'm not telling anybody not to participate. There's a ton of money to be made in that. Yeah. But I try and stick with something that is at least an attempt at a business model when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I play around with it, but having any thought that I'm going to make a ton of money, most likely I'm going to lose money. And it is, everybody who's made a lot of money, it came from somebody else's pockets. So that's the thing. Every time I read somebody, I made $1 million, I think, well, that $1 million came from somebody else's pocket.
There was a seller. Yeah.
There was somebody that invested that money that allowed you to take that out. So it's a
Sure.
no-win. Nobody, it's a zero, it's a zero-sum game. So
Yeah.
you're just trying to be the guy that gets rid of the hot potato.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So what's next for you?
Yeah, that's what I'm discovering every day. I'm trying to figure out where I want to be and what I want to do. I do know that I love domain names. I came in this thing, Domain Shane. I really understand business. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with businesses to get their domains that our customers have to them, or vice versa. When a business needs a domain name, building a business is incredibly tough, right? There's so many headwinds and obstacles, and I've seen that. I've built internet business, I've built brick and mortar, and so I really, over the last year, I did every day. I met online Zoom or Google Meets with 2 people, 3 people a day, every day last year, or actually this year, 2023. I kind of seized it a little bit as I've been traveling a lot, but it was to meet interesting people doing interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I love being part and listening to what they're doing and what they're building. Like we're talking about Blur and that the company's real hot when we're recording this. That's kind of the hot news, is they've got a new level 2 coin. Pac-Man, I won't say his real name because maybe everybody knows it, but he's the kind of man that I enjoy talking to. He's so smart. I knew him from domain names. Most people don't know he came over from the name-based side, like the non-traditional domains. He was the one making, it was kind of a competitor, ENS. So he had a company like that he sold before he started Blur. And then he does Blur and he's doing other things. Those are the people that I love talking to. When I go to the conferences, I never go to the holders parties. I did go to the Bored Ape one in Hong Kong, but in general, I go to the builder side, the DeFi side, the business side. That's where, to me, is interesting to see what people are doing. So that's my future. I think it really involves domain names, because that's just kind of my focus and what I do well. But the business side and business development and, maybe some seed investing as well. I've got to get, I have enough money to survive and do well, but if I start throwing $100,000 at companies, it might get a little thin. But I think that's what I'm doing. The great thing is I can do whatever the hell I want. Like, that's the beauty of my wife. Only nags me maybe once a day to get going, and but after 30 years of pounding it's kind of like you stop, and then you got to get the gears going again. And my gears are going now, but they weren't for the first 6 months. I mean, I can tell you this, and this is something that I tell people. When I was done working at the nursery and I didn't have anything to do, I still couldn't sleep. Because I was so excited about that I could do anything that day. Like, I was just as excited about having nothing to do as I was about having everything to do. And I kind of lost that feeling about 7 months later, because then I was like, okay, now I need something to do. Now I know what I could do, anything, but now I got to know what that is. Working with Buckley Media is that thing, right? That's what I'm enjoying, and I'm learning something new. And so I'm happy doing that. And I look forward to branching out and doing a lot with them. Personally, I'm great. There's not a lot left I can do personally. I'm about traveled out too. I've been in LA, New York, Hong Kong, London, Tokyo, all in the last 6 weeks.
Wow.
I'm ready to sleep in my own bed. So it sounds great. It looks great on paper. It looks great on Instagram.
Yeah.
But it's a bitch on your body. So no matter what age, like not sleeping in your own bed and not even know what day or time it is. I mean, when you go to Hong Kong, people do this all the time, I'm sure, but 13 hours and then all that time, a 17-hour flight with a 13-hour time change, then coming back and then going to Chicago and the next day going to New York City and then going to LA and coming back. I honestly didn't know what day it was or time it was for a week.
Sure.
So
yeah, you're just trying to catch up for sure, mentally.
Yeah,
and
but that's much different than raising kids. Like, we go through that thing where that's we're a taxi driver. Like, what do you do for a living? Well, I work all day and then I take my kid to all her shit. Like, that's what I do. There's no other role. I do nothing else.
It's crazy.
And that's amazing. So I've been through all those, and that's where I think I can be helpful to being an advisor for a lot of people. Is I understand what you're going through. You tell me your age and your financial and your family situation. I've been there. I understand that. I can tell you how I can help you get through that. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing I love using my experience to help people get through it, because it doesn't demean what you're going through. That's the other thing in therapy. When people tell you, I'm really big into mental health, and I think people are a little weak when it comes to things right now. They have trouble dealing with stuff, but that doesn't mean that they don't need to have people to talk to. And so you don't want to demean saying other people are going through, but there is something to be said about, hey, this is an obstacle that many people face, and here's how we can get through it. So I enjoy those conversations.
Yeah, you're like the Yoda of Web3.
Well, I've just paid attention. So I always tell everybody the thing that I've done is I've always paid attention to what I'm doing while I'm doing it, because there's a good story in everything you do. And that's all I really wanted out of most things. Like when my daughter would go, Dad's only going to get stories. And it's true. Like I will do something completely stupid and really that I don't want to, because I know there's going to be some great stories out of it. And the shittiest things we ever go through sometimes make the best stories. So you know, my daughter had something crazy happen to her, and I said, it was a pretty rough day. And she goes, yeah. I go, you're never going to forget that. Like, that's going to be one of your best stories you ever had. So to suffer for a day, it's not so bad. Like,
exactly.
You're going to get a good story out of it. And a good story, if it can be told, and if you know how to tell it, is worth some of the bad things in life.
100%. Hey, Shane, I want to run through some rapid fire questions here.
All
right. So first one, favorite crypto project. Let's go favorite NFT project, and then favorite just altcoin.
Yeah, I would say, it has to be Bored Apes. They've just given me so much. Anybody who takes care of you financially like that, you feel
indebted to.
For. Yeah. And the people I've met, we hear about communities, and you have it with the Wolf Game, and there's some crazy great people in Wolf Game, but I just met some good people, like just really good people, and have some good energy, and nobody makes me feel different when I'm around there. When I'm with Bored Apes, every face looks different. Just an incredible mix of people. When you go and see people in real life, you just realize there is old people, young people, male, female. We all do different things. It's a beautiful thing. And all projects have that. All projects have that mix of people. Bored Apes, we just happen to have a little bit more money so we can go to Hong Kong. Like the reason is in Hong Kong is people made a lot of money with our drop. So that has to be my favorite. But I loved Wolf Game. There was no more excitement than me grabbing my wool every Friday. That's every Friday until my tax became a pain in the ass. I started doing it every 2 weeks because the drop and crypto tax don't go well. But I was getting a check every 2 weeks. I get my wool and check. I just loved that part of it. So I would say Wolf Game and Bored Apes are probably my two favorite. But Trippies was my favorite experience. So Andy Booth and I and his brother James and a bunch of other great people had the artist from Bulls on the Block and Joe Ruiz, and we did Trippies, and we sold 10,000 of them, and it was tough situation. Being a project founder, again, I understand it is incredibly difficult. You people rely on you, or they think they have to make money, and if they don't, it's just brutal. So being a founder was the most amazing, difficult thing in my life from that other side. So Trippies is probably my favorite of everything I've ever done, just because of the experience and because my name was on it. But it's also the most difficult thing. It really taught me a lot about making obligations that I had trouble keeping because I was so busy and it was over my head on certain things. And, we're just learning. But again, a lot of founders are learning on the job. A lot of people are young. Yep. So again, that went on a little long. When it comes to coin, most of my money's in Link. I did just take profit on Link. I took a really good profit lately. It's been up so much. I needed to take some out. But I do like Solana. I got into Solana early. Solana was my favorite because it time stamped. I felt from trading, one of the biggest issues with trading was people had super great connections, right? And they were beating people to deal flow because they had a higher rate that they could make a trade before you. They could jump in line, and then same with deal flow. Like on Robinhood, they're selling the deal flow. You're getting shitty fills because it's free. Like, okay, I don't have to pay a trade. Well, why don't I have to pay for a trade? You don't have to pay for a trade because they sold your trade to somebody who's going to fill it shitty and make the money that way. Mm-hmm. Solana solved that by time stamping everything. So there would not be any issues. It would always be time stamped in order. It was quick. It was fast. My issue with Solana is it's not truly decentralized. It's, there were times where they were getting botted in some mint, so they just turned off the ability for some people to mint. And I thought, how in the world on a level 1 can you just turn something off? That's not crypto in the true sense. Yeah, I think people believe in it again, and I think there's reasons behind it. I've changed my mind on that, but I like Solana. I like Link, of course, Ethereum. It's like the backbone of what we do, right? Like, and Bitcoin's my store of value. Always have Bitcoin sitting to the side. Dollar cost averaging just a couple $100 a month now. I should have done it in the beginning, but those are the coins that I pretty much stick with. It'd be Link, Solana, Ethereum, and BTC. And everything else I get in and out pretty quickly. Doesn't mean they're not great. Just you can only concentrate on so many things.
Yeah, and your conviction has to be pretty high because it's risky overall. What's one NFT you wish you hadn't sold?
None. I've literally sold everything. I've not missed anything at all. Literally, I've never missed one. I've waited too long to sell, but as far as selling too early, I didn't miss any of them. I've never got less than 250,000 for my apes and my mutants until this last mutant that I just sold this year. For my mutants, I got 38 ETH, 42 ETH, and like 28 ETH. So
crazy.
Yeah, I haven't missed. There's nothing that I've missed of selling too early. If anything, I've held a little too late. But again, I've hit it pretty good. If you follow me, I've done pretty solid.
What would you say your biggest or the biggest misconception you see people having about the NFT space?
I'll tell you the one thing that they're right about is we have a gambling problem. That's the one thing that they're getting right, is that our space has gotten the needle moved so far that we can't deal with $100 win. $1,000 win for a lot of people don't move the needle. That's a bad place to be, and I don't know how we get back from there. But I also think that the misconception, it is a bunch of kids and gamblers, because amongst all that, and even some being still addicted gamblers, are some brilliant minds from all different realms. Yep. We're not just a bunch of 25-year-olds that are just throwing money around and Ponzi scheming. We are participating in all of the above, but those people are brilliant. Like, I've met people that are founders of billion-dollar companies. Literally billion-dollar publicly traded companies are in Bored Apes that I talk to. There's people that are doctors, people that are physicians' assistants. There are people that are assistant directors on movie screen films that you know of that I met. So there is every day in what you see. Amongst those people that have an appetite for risk are some of the most brilliant, best people in society that you don't even know participate.
What's a trend that you're really excited about in the Web3 space?
I think it's just linking hard assets into a tradable form. I think the one thing that I'm going to be a seed investor in, something that's taking a hard asset and making it much more easily tradable and set up loans against. in a way that's safe and secure and quick. And I think that's the future. I always tell everybody, you're not gonna probably learn about blockchain. You're just gonna see that things are easier. So the common person will never understand what blockchain is, but it will be part of their everyday life. When a person goes and sends Western Union to Mexico, that's a hardworking person that's sending money home. They don't have any idea that it was based on Ripple. They don't know that, and they don't care. All they know is that the fee went down 90%, and that it's instantaneous now, and they don't have to wait for anything. That's the future. That's what I'm excited about. Because I'm excited about it's going to be so good you don't know that it's there, and that's how everything is, right? If it's really done well, you don't know that things changed. You just know it got better and cheaper. And that's what blockchain gets me excited about, is how people are going to utilize that to make our lives better. Nothing should be forced. You don't bring in blockchain because it's blockchain. You bring in blockchain if it can make it better and quicker and cheaper. I don't like people that force things in there. And again, I don't want to cause controversy. .eth is great. I understand we needed wallets that weren't. The reason we have domain names is because we didn't want to type in this giant set of numbers to go all over the internet, right? So we came up with names that are easy to remember. That's what wallet addresses do. They do the exact same things as domains do, but for crypto. But ENS, you can wrap any domain. I can go to domainshane.com and you send me money and it will go to my wallet. I don't need a .eth address. It just needs to be any domain can be wrapped. ENS made sure that it was more than just .eth. So the value of .eth to me is not as great as everybody thinks, because I can just take any great domain and make it a wallet address. Amazon doesn't need Amazon.eth. The technology allows Amazon.com. If you send Amazon.com money, it'll just go to their wallet, the same as it would as Amazon.eth. So they don't really have a need. They're not going to get any better than Amazon.com. So you also have to understand the technology and why it's useful and utilize it to its full potential. And if you think something's more valuable because it's the only thing that utilizes that technology is not where it wants to be. It needs to be able to make everything better. And an ENS makes domains better. Doesn't matter what the domain is. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about using all these protocols and blockchain technologies to make things great and fast.
Yeah, love that. If you could have a 1-hour conversation with any historical figure, but only discuss their views on modern technology and the internet, who would you choose and what would you ask first?
A scientist that I was really enthralled with that I'd always want to talk to is named Linus Pauling. You know who that is? Linus Pauling.
Is there the Pauling test or?
Yeah, he's like vitamin C and he's a scientist on modern medicine, and he was just somebody that I was enamored with, because he's always trying to improve health and medicine, and always trying to better people. Like that's what his big concern was, how to make people healthier. And I there's nothing about money. There's nothing about trying to do it to have a drug company. He was just a scientist. And so Linus Pauling is an odd one, but he was alive when I was a kid, and he was kind of like, for some reason, James Madison and Linus Pauling were my two go-to people. James Madison was the 4th president, and I just would read books about James Madison. But if I could go to any historical figure, I tell you one thing I was talking about with my wife. The one thing that I would love to do is just be a fly in the wall with JFK to see what his life. I don't know if I want to talk to him. I literally would just like to be a ghost and follow him around for his presidency and to see what really happened. Right?
Sure.
Like those are the kind of things that I wish I could go back in time and just witness things, whether it's small periods of time or just. I have so many questions that I couldn't get in an hour, but maybe I could answer it with a couple hours of watching. And so that's one thing and that's why we like to visit places, right? That's why we like to go. That's why men think about the Romans all the time. Like that's because we would love to know what it was like back then. And all those things. So that's not quite the answer you're looking for, but
no, I mean, it's a great answer. It's you, right? At the end of the day. it just proves the point that you're a forever explorer, right? You're
Yeah.
always trying to learn and see different sides and to understand something for what it's worth, right? So I think that
Yeah.
is incredibly valuable. I want to just take a moment to drop into just Wolf Game really quick. So I know you had mentioned that it being one of your favorite projects. What would you say like initially attracted you to Wolf Game?
Yeah, the very first round of Wolf Game was exciting. It was everything, and I say this in a lot of podcasts and a lot of people. When I was a kid, my favorite game was Lemonade Stand. And I don't know if you ever played Lemonade Stand. It was the simplest of games. You had a weather forecast, you had cups, you had lemons, and you had marketing. You had an advertising spend. And you would put those numbers in based on how many cups you would think you would sell. So you'd make the investment in the cups based on the weather forecast. And then the next day it would say, da 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 da, it was 82 degrees. You sold 14 cups and you made this much money. So it's just putting in a couple simple numbers, kind of gambling on the weather, and then you would have a result and see. And that's what Wolf Game kind of was. There was simple computations and movements, and then you could breed cheap and you could make money. The money part was really great. But even if it wasn't, I enjoyed the process of the initial game. When it got hacked, for me was really exciting. From the standpoint is I knew how much money had made. I knew how much money had been taken in. And I was gambling on the part where I thought, if this person is any kind of smart person, he will take that money and rebuild it the way he wanted to after he saw it run, right? So a lot of us do things and we start it and we do it and then we can't change it because things have gotten going and it's just stuck the way it is. And to change it's too much. It's just how life is. But he got a second chance. And I thought, man, if that were me, I would be kind of excited about this. Yeah, it kind of sucked, but this is a chance to really make something great. So I went all in and said, I'm with you. Like, let's go. Let's make something special. You've got time. And so that anticipation, where we started our conversation earlier with your wife saying, hey, we might fool around later. That's what Wolf Game was in the beginning. Hey, we're going to build something amazing and it's going to be down the road. And that really kept people going and the excitement. And we had the little mini games within that were really fun.
Yeah.
Where I lost it, and this was just my particular thing, is I felt there was going to be an economist that came through and really built a game that an economist who knew their shit would say, this all can work. And it may not be the rewards that people are looking for early. Like, we know that you can't be making $2,000 a day in any game and survive, but you might be able to make $20 a day, but there's got to be some input costs. So there's got to be winners and losers, and there's got to be things of that nature. But there also could be interest. Like, conceivably, if a project takes in 20,000 ETH, they conceivably could stake the 20,000 ETH, make some revenue from that, and then put it back into. So there's ways I thought it could happen. It's much harder than I'm saying. I understand that part, but when it was all said and done, the game wasn't quite what I expected it to be, and so it just wasn't for me. It wasn't worth the time to effort. Again, this all comes back to what we say: the time and effort that we put into something versus the rewards or the pure enjoyment that we get out of it. It wasn't there for me, and I also, and I know people don't agree with this, but I do feel that the face of a company or people love leaders. People love real people. People love accountability. And that's what Kevin Rose did for Moonbirds, right? It would have never gotten to where it started without Kevin Rose being a figure. In hindsight, that really hurt him, and he didn't make great decisions. But I think that's what Wolf Game, the chef was really cool, but then it came to a point where I think we all wanted somebody. Like, we wanted a real person that was feeding us information to make us feel comfortable. We needed a true leader. And that's where I didn't know who I was following. I didn't know who I was turning to. I didn't know who I was supporting. I didn't know where I was. And when I get into that situation, I just go somewhere else. And so that's kind of where I was. It's nothing against the people. And I hate to, I never I shouldn't say that. That's not true. I do bad mouth, but I generally say what I'm doing and people take that as bad. So if I say I'm selling all my link, people are like, oh, you're fudding. No, I'm just selling my shit. Like, this is what I do. Like when and I announce everything I do. So,
and you're not afraid to speak your mind, right? You're not afraid to speak your mind. I think is important too. Well, especially in this space.
I'm willing to take the repercussions of making bad decisions. Like if I do something and then they come back and say, you wish you wouldn't have done that. I say, yeah, you're right. I sold at a bad time, but for me, that was the right move. And in hindsight, it's easy. That's the thing. I don't like to debate things that are either done. And, maybe if we can learn from it, we can discuss the process and things like that. But I also don't like to debate things that have no answer. Like, like I said about JFK, we don't know what went on truly. So for us to debate certain things, it doesn't make any sense. That. I'm not a big wasting on time. Now, going over a process and why you made that decision and what would you change? Yeah, that's an important part of growing up and getting better and making better decisions. But at the same time, there's no sense in making fun of somebody about it. Like they made a bad decision. You think they don't know that, right? In Web3, we're a bunch of go-getters, and we're as hard on ourselves as we are anybody else. So for me to tell you, you made a shitty move, you already know that. Like, I know you're a grown man. Like, I don't have to make it worse by telling you something you already know. That's just not who I am. I don't step on people. I always say I don't need to chop anybody down to make me taller. That's just not how I'm going to try and climb the ladder. I'm not going to pull your ladder out from under you. That doesn't make me any better. So Wolfgang just didn't quite get there for me. And so it is what it is. That's just.
Do you think you'd ever re-enter back in the ecosystem? Is it if there's money to be made on that front, right? If there's the risk,
I think it has to be a little both. I have to enjoy it. So, my time is important to me. It has to be not just money. For money to be made, there has to be some time put into it as well, right? And I have to just decide if the money to be made is worth the time that I'm putting into it. I would never say never. Like I never say never, but I am saying I enjoy more the conversations, rather than playing around with NFTs this year. I did those Zoom calls. I worked on my business. I did these other things, more than the time. I was putting so much time into NFTs and it was working really well. But when it's not going that well, I'm not Zeneca. I can't just say, hey, everybody, I want to do this and then it be popular. Like that's not who I am. I don't have that pull of income sources. And, that's the thing is I do see the leaders in the space and, it was a little hard financially on them. They had made a lot of money and they had gotten used to quite a bit of money. So I pay attention to how they're reacting to all this. Sure. And some of them are struggling mentally, and some of them I can tell are struggling a little bit financially. Not so much that they don't have money; it's just they're addicted to making money, and that didn't happen.
And they didn't also allocate it correctly, or diversify enough, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think we all have that. I mean, I made a huge mistake of screenshotting my bank account with $1 million on it. That's like literally the only regret I can think of is I had $1 million cash sitting in my bank account and I screenshotted it to show it to my wife, and it's not been there since.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. When emotions are running high, it's usually the time to kind of make it. And then, they're usually the smart one on the end where they go, well, why don't you just sell it? And then you go, well, the thesis hasn't played out yet. This thing is going to quadruple, right? It's like,
no, that's what I said. But she told me that thing about my wife. She told me that at 4E. She's like, you're up 8 times your money. And I thought, I know, but I don't really care at this point. And fortunately, I had other things that I was making money on. And I've always had domains. And like I said, it wasn't always about the money, but then it became a good amount of money. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's amazing.
I need to buy things.
It really is. Yeah. Hey, Shane, where could people find you?
Yeah, so Twitter's the easiest. I actually have been doxxed since day one. It's Shane Cultra, ShaneCultra. I always say doing it for the Cultra because my last name is Cultra. That's the easiest way to find me. My DMs are always open there. My email is domainshane@gmail. Again, that's open for people to email me and anything they need or want to discuss. My best conversations and my worst conversations are from being open. Like I don't mind talking to anybody. It does drive me crazy when the only reason they talk to me is for me to sell me something.
Yeah.
I don't mind that they're selling something, but I really want to learn about them. Like, why are they selling something? What's the story behind them? That's to me what I really enjoy. But what I don't like is I feel like the only reason they want to talk to me is to sell me something. That's really where it gets me. It's not about the selling. It's about, I want people to talk to me because we can both have a good, entertaining, informative conversation. I don't want to, if you only need me to sell, I'll talk to somebody else. So that's the best way to talk to me. And like I said, I don't feel like the old soul until I look in the mirror and then I realize I might be.
Yeah. Well, it's a master salesperson too, to build that rapport, right? You don't just go, it's like the girl that's cute at the bar. You don't just ask her to go home with you right away. You got to kind of schmooze a little bit. But the importance of that.
But the difference of the reason I've always had pretty girlfriends and great women is because I just talk to them, right? Like that person's, there's nothing to be lost by going up and talking to them. They may like a guy with a bigger nose, they might like somebody that's pigeon-toed. Like their whole dream might have been, I'd love to marry a man that's pigeon-toed, and here I walk in pigeon-toed. So you always shoot your shot. And again, conversation, I'm all about that. Like nothing's ever to be lost with good conversation, and whether that's male or female. And I and again, this a little off topic, but like people will say, oh, I like a beautiful woman. No, you know what I like about a beautiful woman when I walk in a room is because she controls the room. I think it's an amazing, powerful thing is to see the reaction of a person that's nice looking, male or female, when they walk in a room and the way the room responds. I think that's an incredible thing. And again, I talked about, I pay attention to that. That's why when I walk in with a beautiful woman, I'm not thinking, oh, I want to go home and sleep with her. I'm like, I want to see what the hell this room's going to do when this person walks in, because it's intoxicating, and it's really, and it's no different than a powerful person, right? That commands a room. It's a little harder to get on the internet. Web3, we have our influencers, but a couple of those influencers you meet in person, like they're lucky they got the internet, man. Like,
it's crazy, right? It really
is.
It is. And they've definitely gotten ahead of their skis too, with how they may treat people or whatever it may be. It's a little challenging, when you have done well in real life and you've built things, and people try to get your time, and you put it out there that like, hey, you need to make an appointment with me to get my time. And then I feel like when I'm reaching out to people on Twitter, they don't either respond or they're like, who's this little bastard? You know what I mean? It's like, it's a little gut check.
And then you go meet them in person, and they're like 22-year-old person that really was probably bullied for the first 21 years.
Sure.
So, but I look at it this way, good for them. Like, good for them that they found who they are. Good for the internet and Web3 for giving them an opportunity. Like, that's what it's all about, right?
Power.
Yeah. We got our opportunity in other ways. And so to provide to Web3, to provide some other people some opportunities, that's great. That's what it's all about. I don't have any problems with that at all. I do laugh and giggle about it a little bit when I see them. But in general, I shake their hand and say, go get them, man. Like, I'm proud of you. You've taken Web3 or the internet and made it powerful for you. So
your oyster.
We did that in other ways. We use sports, and we use things like, you're a tall, strong person. You use that to your advantage in your own ways. And so they just have different skill sets. So nothing wrong with that.
Very true. I love that, man. I loved our talk. Is there anything or any questions that I didn't ask you that you wish I did?
No, I appreciate you having me on here. As you can tell, I enjoy talking and sharing my experiences. And I always tell everybody I don't have any regrets because everything's led to this. If I would have made any different moves, I wouldn't be here. So I wouldn't change literally anything I've done, whether it's Web3 or Web2. I came in here looking out and observing, and I'm still doing that, and I'll continue to do that until I die.
Very true, Shane, for sure. And you have so much wisdom, right? I loved picking your brain. I mean, we could be on this show for many hours talking about life, and there's so many people that need to hear this, especially in the Web3 space. And so I appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah,
and we'll definitely have to do this again at some point.
Absolutely. And it all started because I think you invited me to lunch in New York City, out of the blue, never met each other, really just internet. We took that online presence and made it real life presence. And that's how it's done, right? And now here we sit talking again, and we'll talk again in the future, and we'll see each other in person again in the future. And everybody just needs to keep doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Hey everyone, what is up? It is Digital Optimist here. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Den. Quick favor to ask, hit that subscribe button. When you hit that subscribe button, that's going to allow me to attract top tier guests to provide you with the most value possible. Give me a follow over on X at Digital Optimist.